On this video, we're going to discuss the differences between bulging discs, herniated discs, protruding discs, degenerated discs, extruding discs, and finally sequestered discs. And very often it's a step-by-step process where a bulging disc can become a herniated disc, can become an extruded fragment, can then become sequestered. It does happen with time. Yes, herniated discs or disc problems can occur with an acute type of injury, falling off a roof, a car accident, that sort of thing. But most of the time it's a repetitive stress type of injury where you are either exercising improperly, not exercising at all, and your muscles are very weak, or you're doing a lot of sitting for an extensive, long periods of time, or you are lifting improperly, bending improperly. Even bending down to pick up a pencil is still lifting if you're bending improperly. So you should always keep your back straight, bend at the knees, that sort of thing. That's not the purpose of this video today. We just want to discuss the differences. So what happens is the discs are simply pads that separate the bones and prevent it from hitting up against each other. And the discs should be nice and thick. These are lumbar discs, which are lumbar vertebrae, which are the vertebrae in your lower back. And the cervical vertebrae, the discs are similar, just smaller, and the vertebrae is similar but smaller as well. Okay, so the disc should be nice and thick. The disc consists of two parts, an annulus, which are the cartilage, the fibrocartilage that surrounds a jelly type of substance, almost like toothpaste, which is called the nucleus pulposus. The nucleus for short, and the annular fibers that surround them. And for a disc to be healthy, those fibers have to be healthy, especially the annular fibers. So what happens is you perform unstable type of movements and for long periods of time, or even repetitively over short periods of time. And what will happen is you get pressure on the annular fibers. The annular fibers cannot handle the pressure, and therefore they start to tear. Okay, now just before they tear, what can happen is they can bulge. Imagine taking a jelly donut, I place it in my hand and I squeeze it very gently so that the gel doesn't ooze out, but what it does is the gel starts to push into the doughy portion of the donut. So the doughy portion starts to bulge. That's what happens in a bulging disc. Okay, the annular fibers will start to bulge as a result of the pressure from the annulus, from the nucleus. So therefore it starts to bulge, and it will usually bulge backwards or backwards and laterally, okay, to the side where the nerves are. Bulging discs don't often affect the nerves, but they can affect the nerves. Then what will happen is, as a result of the pressure on the annular fibers can tear. And when they tear, they can allow for the nucleus to ooze out into the tears, and eventually, if that tearing goes directly through all of the annular fibers and it's going backwards, then what will happen is it'll actually protrude through the fibers, and it can protrude out enough to affect the disc, to affect the spinal nerve. The spinal nerve is like a wire that sits right there in close proximity to the disc itself. So if it puts pressure on the nerve, that can cause pain, tingling, numbness, hot sensation, cold sensations, burning sensations, and muscle weakness. But these nerves also go to your various organs, and it can cause problems with the organs depending on the organs that are innervated by that particular nerve. Okay, whether it's in the lower back, in the neck, in the mid-back, okay, that will determine which organ will be affected. So this last case is called a herniated disc. Now, if that piece that's protruding out breaks off, then it becomes a sequestered disc. where that piece, that fragment, okay, is now in and of itself. It's not connected to the rest of the disc. And you just got to hope that that will shrink by itself so that it doesn't affect the nerve. If it does affect the nerve and it's causing severe pain and you give it some time and it doesn't shrink, then surgery will have to be performed in order to remove it. Okay, conservative type of treatments can't suck it back in. That's what Cox distraction, which is a treatment that I do, and also VAX-D, vertebral axial decompression, which is another treatment that I do. And those two treatments are specifically to address the bulging and herniated discs so that they can suck it back in. Again, my favorite analogy is you squeeze out too much toothpaste and you're trying to get the toothpaste back in the tube, which is impossible unless you could set up some sort of a vacuum effect. And that's what my treatments do. Okay, so a bulging disc is mainly of the annular fibers, which are the surrounding fibers to the nucleus. Okay, as a result of pressure from the nucleus, they bulge out and they can press on the nerve and cause pain. And a herniated disc is where there's a tearing of the discal fibers, okay, the annular fibers, and then the gel or the nucleus will start to ooze out into those tears. And then that could eventually press on the nerve as well. So I hope this clarifies the difference between a bulging disc, a herniated disc. The last disc is the degenerated, or type of disc is degenerated disc, and that's where the thickness of the disc becomes thinner, it becomes dried out, or what's known as desiccated, and therefore the vertebrae get closer and closer together, which also will put pressure on the spinal nerve because the nerve exits between a hole that's formed by the two adjacent or contiguous vertebrae. So therefore that can put pressure on the nerve as well. So there are a number of ways in which the different types of disc problems can cause pain and other types of symptoms. So again, I hope you found this informative, and I'll see you on the next video.